Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
Clark shit.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan. Fantasy R&R.
I'm just kidding about that. I still love you, Clark Schmidt. I can't wait till your next start. I think you got delayed by some weather or something like that this coming week, so they kind of switched the rotation around. But I'm hoping to see you bounce back and hopefully not become a middle reliever again for the rest of your career. You got a nasty curve. I still believe in you. With that being said, Rob here has a list of must-dish ads for the 2023 baseball season after this first week of play. We're going to go around the diamond like we always used to. Let's start with catcher. An LA Angel, Logan O'Hoppe. Rob, take this one.
Yeah, Logan O'Hoppe was a part of the Brandon Marsh deal. He was actually a catcher I totally forgot to talk about last week, so I'm glad this happened. He is a catcher with pop. He was the must-own trade piece for the Angels in order to move, in order to move Brandon Marsh. They got him. He's already hit 2 dingers. He looks really, really good in a loaded Angels lineup.
One of my favorite players from the last few years that kind of had his ups and downs coming into the league, being an older bat, and then fading into obscurity a little bit last year. Yandy Diaz seems to be off to a hot start. Looks like he's starting to put it together a little bit, Rob. I don't know how you feel about this, but he's already got a couple of home runs. He's got a multiple number of runs and RBIs on a Rays team that's just absolutely killing it right now. You could do much worse at first base.
Yeah, he's finally lifting the ball. He's always hit for a ton of power. I believe, like, power-wise, he's like top 5 ever since he got traded over from, I believe it was the Indians to the Rays. He just hit a lot of ground balls. Now he's lifting. And seems to be paying dividends. Let's see if it lasts. That's the thing with Yandy Diaz. It always tends to happen this way. But he does hit for a high average. And again, like you said, Tampa Bay is absolutely loaded this year.
Sung Kim on the Padres. Getting into second base here. This is actually, the next couple of guys are going to be very useful because you can kind of put them all over your board. So, Rob, give us an idea of someone who's eligible at second base, shortstop, third, starting at third this next game. Sung Kim, how do you feel about him as a addition to a team right now at only 22% rostered?
Yeah, this was a guy who even held his own the first year last year in the majors. So, I mean, with the bases being bigger, as we know, and the steals being way up, Sung Kim essentially flirted with 15-15. With a pretty respectable average. I think this is the kind of guy who could take the next step, potentially even be a 2020, maybe a 280, 300 guy. Guy's known to hit. And again, I know I keep saying this, but it isn't yet another great lineup in San Diego. So I say, with the multi-position eligibility, like you were saying, he's a great fit for any team. And again, only 22% owned. That's going to skyrocket. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's on a majority of leagues come even, June, July.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when the bag is bigger, that's always a good thing, especially from a drug dealer. Moving on to Brendan Donovan. This one's a little tricky because, he actually is eligible in Yahoo at first, second, third, shortstop, left field, and right field. Probably the most versatile player. 85% rostered, maybe a little bit hard to find in your leagues right now, taking a routine day of rest after a couple of games, Batting on the season right now, 6 of 22, 273, couple homers, 5 RBIs, 5 runs scored. What do you make of this going forward? Is he a must-add at 85% rostered?
Yeah, I mean, he was essentially, I think, in our league, I think he was 50% rostered after drafts. So, I mean, this is a guy who's leading off, yet again, another fantastic lineup in St. Louis. The position eligibility is through the roof. He hit 5 home runs last year. He's already up to 2 home runs this year. This was a guy, again, retooling the swing, seems to have hit some type of power stroke. And this is, of all the guys that we're going to talk about, if you were lucky enough to get ahead of the curve. I was able to get him in one of my leagues, wasn't drafted, and I snagged him. Missed out on him in the Sandlot, didn't get the waiver for him. This is the guy, I say, of all the people you can get that we're about to talk about, Brendan Donovan is the guy this year. I think he's going to be a monster. If this power thing does continue, people are comparing him to Alex Bregman. With that type of position eligibility, essentially it would be a top 3, maybe 4-round pick next year. So, geez, if Brendan Donovan's still sitting on that waiver wire, go get him.
Speaking of power, we got Nolan Gorman, a longtime subject on this podcast, especially by you, Rob. You were talking about him a couple of years ago during our baseball season. Ranked 26 in Yahoo right now, but only 56% rostered. What do you make of this? Is it just like a lucky first week, or is he going to keep this up for the rest of the season?
Well, Nolan Gorman, 22 years old. Let's not forget about this. This was a guy who was going early rounds last year. He hit a lot of home runs early, started struggling, almost kind of Austin Riley-ish. The only thing is he can't hit lefties. He's going to sit against lefties. But he seems to be pounding the ball super hard. And I believe, again, St. Louis looks as good as they do. They've been DHing him. Brendan Donovan has been playing second base. There's a lot of, worry about with Jordan Walker being called up. They have Dylan Carlson. Lars Nootbaar now is on the IL. And they have another guy I'm blanking on right now. They have a lot of mouths to feed. But as long as he continues to hit, again, this is a top prospect of St. Louis, just not even a year ago, top 50, 22 years old. I think if he mashes righties enough, he is going to stay in that lineup. And I really do, where people were drafting like Brandon Lau, I'm guilty of it. I think Nolan Gorman could be a better version of what Brandon Lau looks like, and he went undrafted this year.
Let's head over to shortstop, pure shortstop in Yahoo formats, Bryce Terang on the Brewers. Bench burst as a lefty this last time, 27% rostered after the first week of baseball, 49th rank in Yahoo, meaning he's probably going to be a hot ad this week.
Yeah, he nailed a grand slam, I think it was against the Mets, that was just like electric, and that's when I kind of took notice to him. He broke camp with Milwaukee. He's a left-handed hitter. Little smallish in frame, and I had read something, that's why I ended up picking him up. It was kind of interesting, is they said that his max exit velocity, I think, was in the 86th percentile. They worked on his swing in the offseason. It jumped up to 90%. They said that nobody makes a 4% jump. Nobody. So they unlocked something in this guy. This guy had speed for days. They were saying that he's the future Milwaukee leadoff hitter. So it could be very, very interesting. It is very early. This isn't their top prospect, in the Brewers organization. But this happens all the time. And power speed combo for fantasy purposes, I'm all for it. Sign me up for Bryce Terang.
Let's move over to third at the moment. Spencer Steer, the Cincinnati Reds, also eligible at first base in Yahoo formats, 8% rostered, 25 years old, had an opening day homer. Somebody that you might want to think about if your lineup is lacking at the moment.
Yeah, especially at third base. Third base is really, really bad this year in fantasy. We went over that last week. But Spencer Steer is kind of more of a topper-ish prospect for Cincinnati. He's got tons of power. The thing is that intrigues me most about Spencer Steer is the fact he's got full playing time, Cincinnati, I think, is either the number one or I think it's actually number two. I think it's number two in all offensive production. He's got pretty solid power. The first home run he hit, which again, as you said, was opening day, was dead center, 435 feet. So pretty solid power. That's a ball that would go out of any ballpark. I did pick up Steer, but I immediately dropped him. Shame on me, but definitely somebody to watch, Spencer Steer in Cincinnati, and it's a young and upcoming lineup.
Yoan Moncada at third base. We've talked about this guy multiple times in the podcast. He's had his ups and downs. He's off to a blistering start, hitting over 440 at the moment with a couple of home runs, but he already is day-to-day with a foot injury after taking a day of rest. What do you make of this one?
Exactly that. Yoan Moncada, when he plays, is good. When he is hurt, he is hurt. Let's move on.
Jose Siri of Tampa Rays, probably the only closely watched baseball team for me besides the Red Sox due to, location. 25th rank in Yahoo right now, only 13% rostered. Rob, you were just talking this guy up to me on the phone a couple of days ago, and you couldn't help yourself. Just go ahead and pick him up, and he's doing great.
Yeah, I actually used my last pick. I was really, something I meant to bring up is early on I have learned in fantasy that I am ultra aggressive now. I used to take a backseat, I'll wait it out, but there's always these diamonds in the rough that don't get drafted. Jose Siri looks like a potential poor man's Ronald Acuna. I mean, the average isn't going to be there. He strikes out a ton. But we're talking about 100 percentile speed. We were talking top-notch speed. This guy had power potential in the minors that was really solid. Again, just struck out a lot. Came up from Houston. This was a Houston prospect. So, again, very similar to like St. Louis prospects. You're always intrigued, or Tampa Bay's prospects. They end up being good. On top of that, the Rays traded for him. They saw something in this guy. Very similar to Yandy Diaz. So they're almost kind of taking the same projectile where Tampa saw something, they're unlocking something in these guys. And Jose Siri is a future leadoff hitter. With top 100 speed, you're not going to be batting ninth for long. And again, Wander Franco is breaking out. This looks like the best team in the American League, bar none. Talking about pitching staffs. Again, their lineup is just through the roof. in fantasy, you want a piece of Tampa Bay, and right now Jose Siri is probably the cheapest piece you can buy and might eventually be like a top 3 player for them, maybe even their top player.
I
and
can
a
see
potential
him doing much better than Yandy Diaz, who seems
poor
to be a
man's
little bit
Acuna.
more streaky.
Well, not even just Brandon Lau or any of these guys,
Yeah,
Josh
the
Lau. A lot of the guys, you know,
and stuff.
yeah. So moving on, what do we got?
Adam Duvall. I'll go ahead and take this one from here in Boston. 4 ranked on the season. I would expect that to drop over time. This guy is a strikeout machine, but he's on fire. He's a free agent pickup for Boston this year, and he's been knocking out some home runs, batting over 400. I will say this about Adam Duvall at the moment. What I'm seeing here in Boston, and because he's been taken 5th in the order the last couple of games, I believe like the power he's shown on this team, especially with some of the other guys having really bad batting averages at the moment, he's probably going to get knocked up into the cleanup spot at some point and stay a solid 4th as a guy with the most power. I kind of see them doing Verdugo, you know, 2nd or 1st leading off. Verdugo probably leading off, and then you're going to see guys like Justin Turner in the 3rd slot a lot of times. Adam Duvall will be probably hitting cleanup for a while, so we can expect his average to go down, but I think it looks like he's in a good position to hit those dingers out to right field and get them over the fence in Fenway for good power this year. Let's go on to Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies, another outfielder for you.
Yep, just one of these guys. You never know when the players are going to have their swan song year. This could be Charlie Blackmon's. Was a guy who hit into the shift a lot. Again, the shift's gone, so now he should be hitting for a better average. He plays in Colorado. The home runs are going to come in summer. He is an old guy. That's all I got. But if he's happened to sit there and you need some outfield help, utility, Charlie Blackmon's.
You could do worse. TJ Friedel on the Reds. You wanted to tell us about some young talent. Let's get into him and Brian De La Cruz of the Marlins, both at outfield.
Yeah, good one. It's always nice, especially if you're playing left field, center field, right field leagues like we do. It's always nice having those outfielders that can play any of those positions, all 3. Both players, can play all 3 positions. That's always nice. Big power upside with both of these players. Friedel could be as just a sneaky in. Again, the Cincinnati lineup is young. They're up and coming. It's somebody to definitely watch. Brian De La Cruz is the guy I'll essentially pound the table on until he's either 90% owned or he's playing every day in Miami. This guy is legit, hits the ball very hard, and will hit for average. Just trust me with Brian De La Cruz. This guy's going to be a top outfielder come end of season.
Yeah, and even with TJ Friedel, going 9th in the batting order, he's still off to an awesome start with hitting over 300 and a couple of homers already on the season. Let's get into starting pitcher. Justin Steele on the Cubs. You wanted to talk about him a little bit.
Justin Steele was a guy who struggled in spring, ended last season really, really good, and then comes into opening day and just absolutely, not opening day, but his first start and just crushes. He's a lefty who pounds and controls the zone. Just the way I like my porn stars. Justin Steele even has a porn star name. If he happened to have been dropped, I got lucky enough in the Sandlot, he was dropped and I wavered him. If he's happened to sit there, or you can try to get him on the cheap because he is going to be playing for a porous Cubs offense, I say get Justin Steele. He looks really, really good in the early going.
So we're going to talk about Mackenzie Gore next, younger pitcher on Washington Nationals. After a little bit of a mediocre season last year, here he is with a 1.69 ERA and 6 strikeouts over 5.1 innings. Nice little outing from him. What do you make of this?
Yes, especially considering he did it against the Atlanta Braves, a very potent offense, struck out 6. Again, he last year, coming up with the Padres, came up, looked really good. Injury, that's been kind of his whole thing. He's a top prospect. Washington got him in the Juan Soto deal. There's going to be no reason for him not to play all season unless if they're going to want to do an innings limit with him if he does tire out towards the end of the season. But Mackenzie Gore, if he's available, snag him.
Mitch Keller, I'll go ahead and take this one. After seeing him at Fenway with the Pirates, he pitched a wonderful game of 7 innings with 7 Ks, gets the win, 1.29 ERA. He made fools of everyone on the team, including Connor Wong. Mitch Keller, Rob, you told me to go out there and grab him, even on this Pirates team, which is probably still going to be as bad as it always is, unlike the Orioles, who seem to be coming up a little bit. What's the deal for fantasy owners in a one-year league versus leagues like the Sandlot we're in right now, where it's a must-own based on keeper status?
Well, Mitch Keller was a top prospect. It just took a little longer than it normally does. And again, very similar to, we're just about to talk about Roansy Contreras. I believe that both players went hand in hand. They're great talents on a bad offense. The thing is, the great talent will always prevail. And Mitch Keller, Roansy Contreras, albeit pitching in Pittsburgh, Mitch Keller, he showed me at the end of last year that this breakout was happening. This was when we were going into, was it after our draft, I think, and he was still sitting there on waivers. I told you, I was like, hey man, it's just a good speculative ad. Let's see what happens. And he looked really good. Roansy Contreras looked just as good in his opening debut as well. So a couple buccos there to keep your eye on.
Absolutely. And then let's move on to Brandon Pfaadt on the Diamondbacks. What a little baby face he has. He is currently residing on your team in the Sandlot. So why don't you give us the rundown?
Yeah, I just think he is the one with the quickest path to the majors, not named now Grayson Rodriguez, who pitched a gem yesterday. Brandon Pfaadt is very, very, very good. And again, I think he went under the radar because, again, he's pitching for Arizona. I don't think a lot of people are believing in Arizona. I think they're actually a sneaky good team. But Pfaadt looks legit. I think if he is available, snag him now. Madison Bumgarner, I think, is already out with an injury. And then the guy who made the 5th spot got absolutely torched, Riley or something like that. So I think he's got an easy path. And just one extra one here, it just came to my mind. Dre Jameson, who's pitching out of the bullpen, I think is either going to be a future closer, an elite closer for Arizona, or a future elite starting pitcher for Arizona. Look out for Arizona, especially in fantasy purposes. A lot of hidden gems up and down, not just the pitching staff, but the starting lineup as well.
Speaking of future closer and what we thought were hidden gems, Clark Schmidt, after years of talking about him on this podcast and talking about his curveball, watching him go back and forth with AAA, arm surgery, middle relief for the Yankees, finally gets to start due to injuries in their starting rotation. And he has a little bit of a shaky start. Over 3.1 innings, he gave up a number of home runs, had 5 strikeouts, which is nice, but with an ERA at 8.10, you have to imagine, even though his role is secure for now, that it will probably be on shaky ground when some of their starters get back to health status. I still think he could be useful. I'm going to hold on to the team. He kind of, rocketed to Yahoo relevance this year, at one point being 57% rostered before this loss. So we're finally seeing him get a chance at least. We'll see where that leads. But with that being said, even though I believe in Clark Schmidt as a potential closer, because he always plays lights out when he only does like 1 to 1.2 innings, let's talk about the young talent on the Yankees right now. Ron Marinaccio is a younger pitcher who is off to a good start, getting limited appearances for the Yankees. He's got a save and hold on the season. 3.1 innings pitched, 6 Ks, no earned runs. He's got some pretty nice stuff at the moment, and the Yankees are talking about making him a long-term closer. So it's somebody that I'm eyeing right now at only 16% rostered. Could be useful for people who need saves and holds later in the season or for the next few years in a keeper. With that being said, you got a couple of guys, Michael Fulmer and AJ Puck, that you want to talk about. Dudes from the Cubs and the Marlins who look to be the future closers there.
Yeah, that's pretty much about it. I think both of them have the raw stuff. Michael Fulmer was working on a pitch that essentially was just wiping people out in spring. I can't remember it off of the top of my head, but he looks really good. Michael and AJ Puck has just always had the stuff, just injuries. And Miami, I think, traded for him in the offseason with that in mind, that he was the future closer that the A's were eventually going to use and abuse and eventually trade like they did. Miami just got over one on them, because I believe he could be an elite closer. Michael Fulmer, he's proved it before in the majors, just had an injury-riddled last year. And if you can snag both of them, especially if you're only in a just saves league, go get Michael Fulmer and AJ Puck.
With that being said, that's going to conclude this list of must-ish ads. We're 1 week into baseball for the 2023 season. Can't wait to see what the future holds. I'll be back at Fenway making some of the shorts that you can check out on the other side of our channel. Once again, this is Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We will see you next time.
I'm going to count.